Welcome to the It's in Queens podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Simmons, and this is the only podcast that focuses on Queens, the borough that really has it all. This podcast comes to you each week thanks to the Queens Tourism Council and the Queens Economic Development Corporation. Together, they work tirelessly to showcase our borough as a destination. And it's a destination filled with great experiences, cultural gems, opportunities for everyone who lives here, works here, or maybe visiting from near or far. Now, my regular listeners know I am a big fan of spring. It's one of my favorite times of the year. After being holed up in the apartment for so many months during the colder weather, it's great to get outdoors. And so recently, even on some of these recent colder days, I've really been enjoying getting outside and enjoying the good weather. It feels so great to spend more time outdoors again. It's also a wonderful season to just reconnect with people, catch up in person, rediscover all the energy that comes from being out and about in the neighborhood, or really in any neighborhood in Queens. And lately, I've been finding even more places to explore and discover, more things to do, more restaurants to try, and of course, more than a few Thai spots that have recently popped up around the neighborhood. That spirit of discovery is really part of what makes life in Queens so special. And it brings me to this week's guest, Rob MacKay. Now, you know Rob each week because he brings us insightful and entertaining reports on things to do in the borough through his work with the Queens Tourism Council and the Queens Economic Development Corporation. But what you may not know is that Rob is an accomplished author. He's done books on famous people from Queens, and he's out with a new one called The Sea Made Us, which tells the story of the Garifuna people. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Rob. Rob MacKay, welcome to your podcast, the It's in Queens podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's great. It's great to be here. I have listened to every single podcast that you've done, believe it or not. And so now I'm going to hear my own voice.
So many people might know this about this chapter in your life. You joined the Peace Corps in 1993. Yes. Talk a little about that experience and how it transformed your understanding of the Garifuna people.
Sure. So it's kind of funny because people that know me in my professional life are this dude, he's obsessed with Queens. All he ever does is Queens, Queens, Queens. But I actually have another obsession. And that dates back to 1993 when I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And they sent me to Honduras. I had met a Garifuna before that, but that was my first time meeting this ethnic group that's known as the Garifunas. We'll talk about them more, but they are, from the first time I met them, I thought they were fascinating. And in general, they're all happy to meet me, happy to talk about their culture with someone who's not from it. So it's been a great experience. And I actually, about exactly a month ago, mid-February, I was in Honduras, and I went to the Garifuna Cultural Center in Tegucigalpa, spent the whole day with them. They were actually training for a dance performance. It was just fantastic.
So many people, who are listening to the podcast might not know anyone who is connected with the Garifuna, and I'm just curious, talk a little about their history, how they originated from a mix of African, Caribbean, and Arawak roots?
Sure. It's a fascinating story. Really, it's 1635, a boat that was flying, it was a Spanish boat, or at least flying, sailing under the king, that had a whole bunch of Africans that they had just, whatever you want to say, kidnapped or bought from kidnappers. It crashed. The history is a little hard because this is 1635 in the Caribbean, but I suspect a hurricane hit it. The ship crashed, and a bunch of Africans who had, they were from different regions of Africa, landed on the shore, the survivors, and they mixed with the native culture there, which was Arawak. I mean, there were a couple of different groups there, but the Arawak was the one that they really mixed with. They continued to this is St. Vincent. At the time, it was called Uramain, and they continue to live there. This is 1635. There's no electricity. They're not really there. They have a good chance to sort of gel as a community or as a culture. But the Caribbean was, was a lawless place back then. You had, first of all, you had the indigenous groups, the Tainos and the Arawaks, and all fighting for territory. And then you just had these Europeans that had discovered it, and they were fighting for territory. So the Garifunas, they got involved with some battles. They formed some allegiances. They say that another shipwrecked. They say that escaped slaves from other islands in the Caribbean knew about them. So when they escaped, they went there to mix with this tribe. But then finally, this is about Napoleon's time, the British defeated the French and took over the island, changed the name to St. Vincent, and they wanted to make it a plantation, basically, the whole island is a plantation. And the Garifuna said, sorry, but we're not going to be slaves. So they fought them and resisted them. And eventually the British just said, okay, we're sending you away. And on 11 British ships with English names, they sent away these Garifunas, and they landed about 3 months later on an island called Roatan, which is it's part of Honduras. It's part of something called the Bay Islands. If you like snorkeling and reefs, great place. And then from there they hung out, but they also, they didn't have. It was not like they went there and everything was great. But from the one point of Roatan, they went to the Honduran main line, and they went as far east as Nicaragua, and then they went as far west as Guatemala and Belize. And if you go there now, it's still there are very few paved roads in Honduras, so it's still hard to get there. So you can imagine in the 1700s and the 1800s, they really kind of lived autonomously, and their culture really gelled. And so it's a culture it spans 4 countries. Belize, always on the coast of Belize. Dangrina would be the big city. There's a place in Guatemala called Livingston, actually, which is sort of the big Garifuna village on the water. They call it La Buga. And then pretty much the whole north coast of Honduras, and then you go into Nicaragua, and there's still some Garifuna communities there. And so this culture kind of just it kind of, I don't know, cooked in its own juices or whatever. And what you have is right now is the reason why I wrote this book is because I've been going there since 1993, and the culture is dying. And I finally said, I got to write about this because the kids aren't speaking the language. The kids are eating pizza. We got to do something about this. All this technology, these cell phones are ruining the culture.
The
Yes.
title, Rob, the
Yes.
title, The Sea Made Us. Explain
Yes.
for our listeners why you chose that title.
Oh, sure. So the sea made us is it's a Garifuna phrase that they say about themselves. In Spanish, they kind of translate it as "venimos del mar," or "we come from the sea." But they really, they were, in St. Vincent, they were on the sea. They were always on the north coast they're always on the Caribbean coast of the 4 countries in Central America. They've always been, one of they always have been a fisherman, a sea community. A lot of again, it's a dying practice, but a lot of people that I know, their father would wake up at 4 a.m. and go out in a canoe and fish all day, and then bring the fish back. Some would go to the village, some would go to the local hotels or the local town for the restaurants. But the sea is just a big part of their life and their existence.
And you say you've been going there for so many years. I'd love for you to share a memorable moment from your time, either visiting or when you were living among them.
Well, I can't say that I lived among them. I lived near them, yeah. But so the first, I'd known about Garifunas when I was in Honduras, and one time I went to I was walking with a couple of friends who were also Peace Corps volunteers. We were in a place called Tela, and just outside there are all of these Garifuna villages by the sea. And in 1993, they would live in houses that had like straw roofs, and they would actually sleep in hammocks. And that's still going around today, although a lot of them, someone has gone to New York, made money, and send them back, and they're building concrete houses and stuff like that. But I remember walking along the beach, and a bunch of kids were there, and one of them was saying, dance, $5. He was going to dance for me, and he wanted to $5. I guess he said that to all the gringos, and so I ended up dancing with them, and then all the mothers that were there were like, who is this crazy guy? And I'm a horrible dancer. I was not dancing well, but then I ended up kind of like spending the day with them. And I actually, I'll send them to you. You've probably seen them. I actually have a photo that one of the photos of me on the beach with these kids. One day I was talking to a different Garifuna who knows all of them. She's actually from a different town. And she said, "Oh, that one's in the Bronx, that one's in the Bronx, that one's in the Bronx, and that one's in the Bronx." And that was sort of where I said, "Oh my gosh, everyone's, like there's some of these towns that used to have 10,000 people now have 2,000 people because they're all coming here." And so that photo actually was the motivation to write this book, because I'm like, this is changing. So,
And I'm glad you said that, because that was
yeah,
what I was leading into, because I did not know about the strength of connection with Queens and with New York City, and I'd love for you to
yeah.
elaborate on that a bit.
Sure. They say that merchant marine Garifunas were merchant marines. Again, it's the sea theme, and the first ones came to New York early 1900s, and there's sort of been a population from there. There's actually a play that was written. There was an all-black theater company that put a play, which basically was the Garifuna story that was in New York. But they've always kind of been, in New York. There's a big community. Some people say it's as many as 500,000. Some people say it's 300,000. But there's been a large Garifuna community in the Bronx. And then there's also East New York, and like the East New York Ocean Hill area has a fair amount. There's a lot in LA, there's a lot Florida, New Orleans. I've actually been in New Orleans and talked to Garifunas there. And now Houston is where they're all moving now. There's actually there's a Garifuna supermarket down there, and that's I think where, I don't know if it's because of the heat or whatever, but the thing that's interesting is that the Garifuna communities, it's a tiny, it's small, and Honduras has always been the center because it's where the majority of the Garifunas live. In places like Nicaragua, there are just a couple thousand, and in Guatemala and Belize, there are whatever 20,000 or something like that. And Honduras has always had, whatever, close to 1 million. We're now at almost, we're at the point where after Honduras, the place where the most Garifunas live is the Bronx. And if trends continue, soon the Bronx is going to have more Garifunas than any place else in the world. And so the Bronx is going to be the center of Garifuna culture, but it's going to change radically, because these kids that growing up now, they don't speak Garifuna, they don't speak really Spanish much, but what can you do?
So I guess this week I should
Like,
call this the It's in the Bronx podcast.
no, well, as you know, there is actually as I was saying before we were being taped, there is a nonprofit in Far Rockaway that teaches inner city kids how to surf, and the guy who runs it is in fact a Garifuna from Belize, and the name of the nonprofit is in fact a Garifuna phrase called, which translates as "by the sea." Labu, yeah.
What do you hope people who pick up the book, what do you hope they experience? What do you hope they take away from it?
So the book is kind of straightforward. It talks about their history. It talks about their language. It talks about the food, religion, and more than religion, the spirituality, and the dancing, the last names. Everything about like that the community is like the main things that you and a Garifuna does or did in life. I really, I'm worried that I think it's a really special culture. I'm afraid that it's ending, or at least it's assimilating, I guess is the term. And I wanted to put something down in paper with all the photos, explaining, all of this. There's a couple of recipes in the book from a Garifuna woman who did a book of the Garifuna kitchen, I guess. It's the kind of a book that I think the people that would be interested in it would be anthropologists, people who like history, anthropology, culture, people who are interested in sort of the African diaspora, the whole story of, African Americans obviously have a story, but so does the Caribbean. It's hard to say because it's a passion project for me. I think I just wanted to study it and portray it,
And
share it.
and as you were researching the book, any surprises? Anything? I mean, you've known a lot about their history and culture over the years,
Uh,
but as you were putting together a book, was there some point that you had where you were like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that"?
yeah, there are a couple of things. First of all, I figured that the language that they spoke would have been a mix of many different languages, but it's mostly belongs to the Arawak language. And I guess that kind of makes sense because we have the mother's tongue. If the Africans came to the island of St. Vincent and had children, those children were being raised by their mothers, and the mothers were speaking Garifuna. So I thought that was interesting, and the whole idea of a very African group or ethnic group speaking an indigenous language, that was very interesting to me. I was also interested that the food. I kind of thought that the food was going to be African. The food is you're by an island. You're in the tropical region by the water, so the food has a lot of coconuts, a lot of tropical fruit, a lot of fish. What you would expect, I guess. It's not really African. Yeah. And the other thing that I didn't realize, I mean, the Garifunas have many, many different dances. There's a dance that you do at a funeral. There's a dance you do at a wedding. There's a dance you do on a holiday and all that kind of stuff. What I never knew the whole time was that they believe in that they're attached spiritually to their ancestors. And in some of these dances, they go into trances where they actually communicate with the ancestors. And when things are going well, the ancestors are happy. When things are going bad, the ancestors are not happy. And I guess I never, even though I lived there and talked to people, I never really had caught the whole sort of being tied into your past and your ancestors, which I found very interesting because it's certainly not what I have or what we have in the United States.
So before I let you go, how many books do you already have? How many books have you published? Because I want to know what the next one is too.
So I've written 2 books on Queens. One is Played It Straight. One is Historic Houses of Queens. One is Famous People of Queens. And then
I was not in that book, and I was a little upset about that.
You're going to be in the revised edition.
Okay.
We have to deal with the fact that you were born in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, yeah.
Dirty little secret. And we'll see. Right now, I'm hoping to promote this book, and I've already signed up a few talks. Right now, I just kind of want to live in the moment and get this word out. And yeah, though I would like to write some more books.
And of course, because you want people to find the book, where should they go? Anyone listening right now who wants to find this, He Made Us.
So the other funny thing is that the whole book world is changing since my first 2 books, and that is that now the idea is not to get into a bookstore. The idea is to get into a bookstore website. That's the whole game now. So you can, I know that there are a whole bunch of websites that bookstores run where it is, but I would say the easiest, it's on Amazon. If you did my name is Rob, and the last name is MacKay, robmackay.info would get you access to those 3 books where you can buy it on any one of those websites. But a woman, I'm really lucky. Some woman whose life is promoting books found it, and she thinks that it can work. So she's been talking to like people, bookstores in Australia and other places, trying to get me on their website. So hopefully I'll be in more places. But right now, I would just say Amazon or go to robmackay.info.
And on that note, Rob MacKay, thank you so much for appearing on your podcast, the It's in Queens podcast this week.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for all you do. I know you are too good to us. We have to find something, some way to pay you back.
Well, you're going to pay me back by getting me a new World's Borough sculpture since I broke the last one.
Okay,
I'm admitting
definitely.
that.
I'll definitely get you that. Maybe I'm the next time in Honduras. I'll get you like a Garifuna cooking book or something like that.
I'm fine with that. My husband loves to cook. Rob, thanks so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I really love that conversation. I learned so much, not just from that, but from also pouring through the book, and I hope you will too. It's another reminder that Queens rewards curiosity. This is a borough where there's always something new to discover, whether it's a place you have not visited yet, a restaurant you have been meaning to try, or a neighborhood event that brings people together. In spring, especially, it feels like Queens opens up in a different way. The parks fill up, the sidewalks feel much, much livelier, and every weekend seems to offer another chance to explore something you really hadn't even noticed before. That is part of what makes spring such a good time to get out and see more of the borough. And if you're looking for even more to do, here's Rob with his latest roundup of things happening around Queens.
Hello, Jeff, or should I say Jefe. I'm happy to tell you about two fantastic Cinco de Mayo events that are coming up in Queens. Maybe I should say dos great Cinco de Mayo events that are coming up in Queens. The first one's on Saturday, May 2nd at Queens Theater. It's an homage to Mexican music. So there will be a bunch of bands playing their own music and covers of some of the best mariachi, bolero, salsa singers and stuff that Mexico has produced. I would expect Juan Gabriel, also known as Gabo or Juanga, and Armando Manzanero, maybe even Jose Alfredo Jimenez. The next night, which is May 3rd, at Kupferberg Center for the Arts, also known as Colton Auditorium at Queens College, they're doing another sort of homage, but it's to Mexican music, dance, and culture. So you'll see a bunch of mariachi bands. You'll see an 11-year-old mariachi prodigy, and you'll also see the Ballet Folclórico Mexicano de Nueva York, as well as someone who just cut a disc with Bruce Springsteen. So two great opportunities, May 2nd and May 3rd. Can't miss them. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. That's just a few of the things happening in the borough. And of course, the place to go and discover everything that's on the horizon is so easy to remember. It's at the It's in Queens website at itsinqueens.com. And by the way, if you're interested in more business-related news, how to help your business or friends or family members, make a point to visit the Queens Economic Development Corporation's website. That website is at queensny.org. And when you're there, or when you visit the It's in Queens website, take a minute, pop in your email address, sign up for the newsletter. That way you'll get notified right in your inbox about opportunities. Now, when you visit any place in Queens, I'm telling you to get outdoors, so I'm hoping you'll do this. Snap some photos, share them with us. Make sure when you post on Instagram or X that you use the hashtag #It'sInQueens, because who knows, your photo could become our photo of the week. I'm your host, Jeff Simmons, and that's it for the It's in Queens podcast this week, so get outside.